Welcome into another edition of the Brian Gregory Show. Jim Lighthall along with the head coach himself, and it's good to see you again, Coach. It's been quite a while since we've sat here and done one of these.
Has been a while, and I've been anticipating with great happiness over this time away, and let's get it going.
I figured you would be. I mean, the last time you and I spoke, we've had a presidential inauguration. The Bucks have won the Super Bowl. I mean, if you had GameStop stocks, you'd be a billionaire right now. All this has happened in the last 32 days or so.
Don't throw that out in front of me, because.
Okay.
But obviously it's been a crazy month.
Yeah.
Not just for us, but for everybody around the country, and I think we'd be missing a great opportunity if not both of us, congratulated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just an unbelievable journey that they went on. One that if you took a step back and as a coach analyzed it and saw the ups and downs and then the togetherness that they finished out the season with, and just an incredible story. When you talk about the coach and the GOAT getting together and figuring some things out, and then just, everybody buying in, and you talk about championships, and it's amazing. The formula is not that hard. Everybody's unselfish. Everybody's playing for each other. Everybody's looking out for each other. Everybody's on the same page. It's hard to do, though.
Yeah.
As I always say, the equation isn't hard and the answer isn't hard, but working through it is really, really difficult. And congratulations to them. Great for our city, and excited about the future.
Mixing in the greatest player of all time really helps in that formula sometimes.
Yeah. And maybe, in some cases, maybe one of the greatest teammates of all time.
Mm-hmm.
When you you go all the way back to the summer and the workouts that he put together.
Right.
I think one of the funniest things I read was a couple of the receivers double checking to make sure that was the actual phone number of Tom Brady, trying to get them on a FaceTime and a Zoom meeting to go over some stuff. They didn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
like, why would Tom Brady be reaching out to me?
Yeah,
right.
in the middle of the summer,
right.
With everything else going on, and just some great stories came out of it.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. There's a lot of different stuff to catch up on because, again, it's been about 30 days since we've done one of these, and you played Wednesday night here inside the Yuengling Center against the Houston Cougars, 7th-ranked team in the country, extremely talented. You hung with them for the first half, and then they kind of pulled away in the second half.
Yeah, the 8-minute stretch to kind of start the second half was the difference in the game. I thought tied 25-25, tied 27-27, kind of got our legs underneath us. And then we lost a little bit during that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Offense wasn't as smooth and connected. Led to some turnovers, which led to some transition baskets, and maybe a little bit of fatigue set in during that stretch as well. We had a couple defensive breakdowns, not many though, not many. And the one thing again that you got to take, you got to be able to take a step back. Not the best team to play after a 32-day break.
Right.
Okay.
Who has been playing nonstop. They've been really rolling, yeah.
And they're coming off an upset loss the week before, where Grimes probably played his worst game of the season. And at the same time, I got to look at the positive. One, probably not a bad team because you're going to get all your gook out in that
Mm-hmm.
particular game. Second thing is, when you take a look, and we got to keep getting better offensively, we got to cut down the turnovers, all those different things. But you go down the list of their points allowed. Only one game or two games in conference play is the team that they've played against scored over 60 points.
Mm-hmm.
The two times they played SMU, it was 43 and 50 points for SMU, who probably is the most dynamic offensive team in the league. So with all that being said, there was a lot of good things, but some glaring things that we need to improve in.
The matchup marquee things before the game were rebounding and defense for both teams, really. And then the game comes on, and you're on fire, they're on fire. There's a ton of offense, which I can't even remember the last time a Houston USF game had that many points. And then They kept rolling in the second half. You guys cooled off a little bit. And I say cooled off, but you were still shooting close to 50% against them.
Yeah, and like I said, offensively, point total, field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage, right at 70% from the free throw line. The 11 offensive rebounds we got to their 12 is a little skewed, Jim, because it was 5 dead ball offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
So we were battling, but maybe not as much as I would like to see. We are going, but not going with the recklessness that we have been going to the offensive glass in the past. But again, the turnovers led to 21 points for them. You know what I mean? And we get 6, and that's a 15-point deficit, and that's the difference in the game. And that's, what Houston does, and the reason they're a top 10 team. They have a core thing of what they do really well. But then they also find 1 or 2 things every game that helps them win. Be it Grimes gets free 3 offensive possessions in transition and makes them. It's just different things like that. We did a great job on Sasser, who had been their leading scorer over the last 5 games. And a 5th-year senior in Giroux kind of feels that. And so now he's much more aggressive offensively in the first half. Again, there was a lot of good signs, but also signs of things that we need to improve in.
There were so many things that I looked at in the course of the game with Giroux early, getting to the basket, beating people off the dribble, and his assists were just as harmful as the points. And then Grimes in the second half, once you start feeling it like he was feeling it, there was not a shot he wasn't going to take.
No, yeah, and Grimes and Sasser are their 2 leading shot takers. Neither one is shooting a high percentage. Neither one is shooting over 40% from the 2 or over 40% from the 3. They're a high-volume guys. And because of that, there's going to be games where their high volume also leads to high makes.
Yeah.
And that was one of those games for Grimes. And they do that because what they're great at is everybody does their job. Those big guys, they screen and rebound. Screen and rebound. That's all they do. Occasionally, 5 times a game, they're going to run a post play for them. That's just to kind of keep them happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They screen and rebound. And the guards, make the plays and take the shots.
David Collins ended up with another game. Once you look down at the stat sheet and you say, wow, this is what he's done his entire career. 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists. He shot at a high percentage. He played 33 minutes last night.
Yeah, I kept asking him, and he felt good. And I was a little worried about Chaplin because he had been the last one out of the COVID protocol, and just hadn't been able to get back in the mix in the 2 days that he had. And I thought David, played well. I thought he played well. Again, as you've heard me say this, I thought there was 5 or 6 times where he should have shot the ball. Because when he's open, he can't always the default to the drive. And the 4 assists, and he leads our team in assists in the league. He's averaging 4 assists a game in league play. So that was against that opponent and with what we asked him to do on defense, I thought it was a very, very good all-around game by him.
I didn't think Houston could stay in front of David Collins last night, and maybe part of that too was the fact that Grimes was going off at the other end, and DC had a little burr in his saddle, like, well, if he's going to score, I got to come back and get him too. But he did it a different way by driving to the basket, and again, that set up other people for his assists.
Yeah, and again, I think one of the things that we talk about, you take a step back and what do we need to evaluate and get better at, is creating those drives and becoming a playmaker out of them. There was 3 or 4 that he did a great job of, and him and some of the other guards. There's probably 6 to 10 other opportunities that we need to recognize, make the right read, and connect that pass.
Thought your bigs played well last night. Michael Durr got started early, knocked down a 3. Had a nice jumper in the corner as well. And then Russell Chiwa gave you some good minutes, too.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's always a tough, battle. Offensively, I thought they were good. We got to tighten up our ball screen coverage because that's how Giroux got free quite a bit. But for the most part, pretty good energy by our 5 spot.
82-65 was the final score here inside the Yingling Center last night, and you'll get another shot at them coming up here at the end of the month against those Houston Cougars, a top 10 team. When we come back on the Brian Gregory Show, we will take a look at the pause. That's what they're calling it in college basketball right now, the 32 days off. We'll talk with a head coach after this. This is the Brian Gregory Show. Welcome back to the Brian Gregory Show. As we continue on, the Bulls were facing Houston on Wednesday night here in the Yingling Center, and they will take on the Tulane Green Wave on Sunday. We'll preview that bunch and a couple more opponents coming up in just a bit. Coach, the elephant in the room is the pause. The 32 days off between games. You'd played at East Carolina on January the 9th and then February 10th against the Houston Cougars. I guess looking back on it, let's go back to when you found out, how you found out, where you found out, and then what the next steps were after that.
Well, our protocol is that we are testing every day, and we've gone 6 months without a positive test. And that's every day our guys have to get up in the morning and come on over here to the Muma Center and get tested. Some of those are the PCR tests. Some of them are a rapid test. So we are 10 minutes into practice the day before the Houston game. And we have to shut down practice because a PCR test has come back positive.
Is this whispered in your ear in practice?
Yeah,
Is this announced to everyone?
No, they come to me and tell me, and then we were still in our skill development phase of practice, so the first 20 minutes is that. And then I got to call everybody in and say, okay, here's what we have to do. Everybody's got to, in groups of 3, go into the locker room, got to change. Can't shower here. You got to go back.
This is all protocol that was set up before, so you knew what was going to happen if this happened.
Everybody goes back to the room. We do a analysis of contact tracing, all these different things. Have a Zoom call that night and let them know that we will not be playing the next day. And then we go into a 2-day shutdown where we test everybody and so forth. At that point, we're still the possibility of we had that off week, to get ready for the following week's games. But as it progressed, we had a couple more guys, and it was never a group of 4 or 5 guys. It was like every other day. So it was
right. Which dragged it out.
Dragged it out,
yeah.
And it was also it was hard because all right, we have workouts set up. We got to call and cancel the workouts. Then we actually had one 8-man team practice with everybody that was available to get ready for, I think it was the Wichita State game. Okay. And then we were going to go to Tulsa as well. And after a day, everything was good. Then we go into day 2, and then another one pops positive. So then when we had that and with the contact tracing, we just had to sit down and say, okay, what's our best game plan? All right, February 10th would give us an opportunity where everybody who had tested positive would be done and have at least 2 or 3 days to try to get ready for that game, and that's kind of how it worked.
So let's go back, and after the first one, did you think, okay, we've got one kid that has this, we'll get through that, and then we'll keep on marching along? Because you had missed, a couple games throughout the course of the non-conference with similar situation. Or was it, there's probably going to be another one, and then once that second one hit, then you thought, oh boy, we're really in for it now?
Well, there was only, with the first one, there was only one player that we contact traced to have high contact with that particular person who tested positive. So we felt we were going to get another one. We put the guys on the quarantine. The problem is, Jim, that that 7 to 12 day incubation period where you have it and maybe you don't show anything or even test positive. You're going back to a road trip at East Carolina. We were on a plane, on a bus, in a hotel, all those different things. There was a lot that wouldn't be considered high contact, but enough contact, and that's kind of how the whole thing started. We went back and we time-lapsed all the practice to see who was close enough. And really, there was nobody that would be considered within 6 feet of each other, for 15 minutes or whatever, even within an entire practice. Now maybe that says something about our defense that we're playing, but where it says 50, it doesn't take 15 minutes.
Right.
It could be 1 minute.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think what always happens in this, and I think enough schools have had to do what we've had to do, it's nobody's fault.
Right.
You can't control this thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you do the best that you can on a daily basis, which our guys have done, and then you gotta work it out.
So, Coach, as this is going on, coaches, coaching staffs, administration, they always want to fix everything. My question to you is, did you kind of feel powerless at this point as it's going on and just say, hey, let's let this run its course and then we'll deal with it when it's all over? Or are you constantly tinkering with, we can try and get back a little bit earlier?
I think when we shut it down and said we weren't going to play until the 10th, it was, all right, let's get everything prepared for when we come back.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the guys, now you're talking about, multiple guys quarantined. You're talking about the medical stuff that needs to be done for them, the dietary stuff that needs to be done for them, the academic stuff that needs to be done for them. Then we shutting down everybody else. So you got multiple guys that don't have symptoms, don't have a contact trace, don't have it, but they're still shut down too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that was the only way that we could do that. And as we got a little closer, that's when the phone calls go to other programs. All right, what was your reentry protocol? How did you guys handle it? What did you do? What worked? What didn't work? And to be honest with you, with the energy that we played with in the Houston game, I thought what we did leading up to it was pretty good. Now, everybody said the big challenge also now is game number 2 coming out.
Okay.
You're a golfer. I'm a golfer. I'm not a golfer, but I love to play. You always know that first time you go out for the season,
You forgot all your bad habits.
and you play your butt off.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Your swing feels good. You make every putt, and then a month later you're back to a bogey golfer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's you got to fight that now
Yeah.
as you go into game 2 and 3.
Yeah, well, and there's no blueprint for the way this shakes out. And I was wondering if you had contacted other programs, other coaches. What was the hardest part during the pause? Was it not practicing, not preparing, the camaraderie, the guys not being around each other, you not being around the guys?
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Now, it's always difficult in January not to be practicing. And and again, when you bring them back, it's not like, well, you're starting practice again, because when you start practice at the beginning of the year, you've had 6 weeks of preseason conditioning and workouts. So you're going from 0 to 100 now.
Right.
But the biggest thing for me is just the positive time spent around basketball with the guys and amongst them as teammates. You just don't know what mentally drain is being the guys are going through, sitting in the rooms by themselves and different things like that. And getting them reconnected is going to be the biggest challenge.
You mentioned conditioning as well. I've often heard this. It takes 6 weeks to get in shape. It takes 6 days to get out of shape. You're out for 32 days. I don't know how much these kids were doing on their own. I don't know if you even know how much they were doing on their own. And how hard was it to get them back in shape? And I'm sure it's going to take a while.
Yeah, it's going to take a while, and they weren't doing much. I would say, out of the 32 days, those guys that didn't touch a ball for 14 to 20 of those days, they just our facility was shut down. They're not allowed to come in,
Right.
And different things like that. So, the other one that you hear is, however long you're out for an injury, if it's 2 months, it's going to take you 4 months to get back to where you were before that injury happened. So it's a total of 6 months just to get back to where it was prior to the injury. So, yeah, we got a tough test in front of us because of this.
I mean, you had your own worries, but how hard was it to also look across the hallway and you got the number 13 team in the country, the women's team, who's also shut down, going through the same thing.
Yeah, and again, our players, staff, all those different things, and it's again, it's you're it doesn't all happen at once. So okay, you got one situation that you're dealing with, and then it's the slow roll of
Right,
it,
right.
and that's just the nature of the virus.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the nature of the virus, and it doesn't make sense why this kid ends up getting it, and that kid right next to him did the same exact thing. Doesn't. And we've done. Again, I've said this time and time and time again. Thank God for USF Health because they have done an unbelievable job of not only keeping us safe, but when the crisis hits, that have a really good game plan in place for us.
And you've mentioned that there are kids that didn't get it. So not to be a negative Nancy here, but this could potentially happen again.
Yeah.
How do you guard against that?
Well, we haven't changed our daily protocol, even with the guys who now have had it and are 90 or 100 days, 120 days out of having to be tested again and all. We've done the antibody test on some of those, some of those guys that have not had it, but we're wearing masks. We're 4 guys in the locker room at a time. We've shut down our training table in terms of everything is to go now. So all those things that are so important in building your team camaraderie, building your team connectiveness, has been completely eliminated.
Yeah. I mean, it did work for 6 months and worked very, very well.
Right.
And then you had a hiccup. So, so you were obviously doing something right during that stretch.
And again, like I said, I don't think anybody did anything wrong. I just think this is a battle that just time is going to get you sooner or later.
Yeah.
Some happened early, some happened in the middle, some will happen late.
Yeah, it's you're not alone. I mean, this program is not alone for sure. Well, it was a long pause. Good to be back playing basketball again. The Bulls will host the Tulane Green Wave coming up on Sunday. When we come back, a variety of different subjects that we will cover. That's next on The Brian Gregory Show. And welcome back to The Brian Gregory Show. Thanks for spending an hour with us as we talk USF men's basketball. The head coach, Brian Gregory, and USF and Tulane next up on the docket. That will be Sunday at 2 o'clock here at the Yuengling Center. Coach, a lot of different things I want to talk about, mainly some stuff with the league. You and I were talking before the game last night about how deep this league is, how talented this league is. East Carolina beating Houston, I don't think any of us saw that. But this league has all of its teams in the top 165 in the net. The only other leagues that can say that are the ACC, the Big Ten, and the SEC. Does that show you how deep this league is?
Yeah. Again, I can get on the pedestal and talk.
Go ahead.
It's the best that it's been in the 4 years I've been here. It's got a legitimate national championship contender. It's got 4 teams, I believe, that if given the opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament, could win multiple games in the NCAA tournament.
Is your team one of them?
We're close.
Okay.
We're close. We got some work. We got some work to do. Not in terms of there. Like I said, there's a couple key areas. If we could tighten those up, we're at a point now as a program where if we play well, we can beat any team in our league. If we don't play well, they can beat us, which goes a big difference than, when we, just a few short years ago, if we played well, we could beat a team or two.
Right.
And if we didn't, we had no chance in any situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what's happened is and this is how leagues are built, the teams that have struggled in the past are vastly improved. And that would be us, East Carolina, Tulane. Okay? Vastly improved. The middle of the pack has gotten better as well. And then the top being Houston right now is really, really good. And all you got to do, I think Central Florida's a good team. So does Auburn and Florida State.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they found that out.
And
Yeah.
I think they have 8 losses in the league already. You know what I mean? And the only thing that always bothers me, Jim, is when in all those other 3 leagues you mentioned, when a team in the bottom half beats a team in the top half, they talk about how good the league is. When it happens in our league, they talk about maybe that top team isn't so good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's not being fair.
No. And you can only play who you get the schedule and so forth. East Carolina didn't lose a non-conference game. Tulane didn't lose a non-conference game. You know what I mean? We played a more difficult schedule and lost to 2 good teams and so forth. But, the teams that Houston beat, Wichita State, lost in last second play to Oklahoma State. You know what I mean? We didn't get the 13 games to build our body. And because of that, and some of those other leagues didn't either. But they just rely on the tradition and the history and the perception of all those different things. And one of the things that was afforded to me during this pause is, for the first time ever, I got to see some other games during the season. And it only confirmed what I said. I'd like to see some of those teams from this league go out to Wichita and play, or to play Houston, or to go to Tulsa and go against that zone. And to go against, Memphis, not only their talent, but they're one of the best defensive teams in the league. And I'll give you an example of this. We have a guy, Mark Adams, who does a lot of the ESPN games for us. And he's a former coach. And he tweeted out the other day that there's 4 teams in our league in the top 16 in defensive 3-point field goal percentage. We're in there, Houston, Memphis, and
Tulsa?
Tulsa.
Okay.
Tulsa or Wichita State,
Right,
one of those
right.
teams, right? Right away, everybody hits them. Well, because the league's no good and the teams in the
shoot.
league can't shoot.
Right.
So then he's ready for it, right? So then he posts in all 4 of those teams against the 2 or 3 Power 5 teams that we each played, and what those teams shot from the 3.
Right.
And we were the highest in the 2 games we played. They shot 30% from the 3, which still would make you a top 25 in the country.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but it's automatic. It's automatic, and it's just something that we as a league have to continually address.
It just feels like there's always 2 different arguments, one for the Power 5, one for everybody else. And you're talking about the non-conference games. Sometimes this league needs those 13 games to prove who they are. Sometimes the voters, now Houston's number 7 in the country right now, but the voters would look at a Houston or a Cincinnati or a Wichita State and say they need to beat somebody else outside their league, whereas there's the built-in bias that the ACC and the Big Ten, they don't need to beat anybody because you can see already how good they are, whereas your league has to prove it.
And what those leagues have done, they've cooked the books a little bit now. So in a normal season, now they're playing 20 league games. So they have such a limited amount of non-conference, so we don't even have sometimes the opportunity to play those teams.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, they're going to get their home games, plus those TV challenges and all those, a neutral site game.
And once those are done,
they're
not playing home and homes, against anybody. So the thing that the numbers this year is going to be, there's a team ranked, I think, 13 in the net that did not play one non-conference game. They didn't play one non-conference game. They've played 4 league games or 5 league games. They're 4-1, and they're 13th or 14th.
Makes no sense.
Makes it. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But I can tell you as a coach within this league, the change in the league since the day one when I got the job to now is dramatic.
So the floor is coming up, not necessarily the ceiling is coming down. It's the floor is coming up.
No doubt about it. And you look at that and it's you got 3 teams that have sold out for basketball in terms of an unbelievable commitment level and all those different things, but you got everybody else now starting to push towards that as well, and I think that's helped also.
Want to change gears and talk recruiting a little bit. Trey Moss at Windermere is the early signee for you. He's a 6'3" guard. I looked at his numbers last night, Coach. 18 points, 19 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Seems to be doing what you want him to do. I know that recruiting right now is an entirely different animal than it's been in the previous 30 years for you. He's 90 miles away, but he might as well be 900 miles away, right?
Can't see him play live.
Right.
Watched him quite a bit on the computer screen.
Okay.
Talked to him quite a bit. He can't come to a game. It's been, luckily, a lot of time spent here and a lot of time spent there prior to all this. He's had a tremendous senior year, and I think he's done a great job of leading that team. A very good team. Had a chance to win the state championship. Tough battles ahead for that team, but I've been very pleased with the way he's played and his growth as a player. He is a guy that could probably score 25 to 30 a game, but they have a very good team. Mm-hmm. And they share the ball well, and he does a lot of good things. So I'm excited about coaching him.
I used the term blueprint a little bit earlier, but you kind of do have a blueprint with recruiting in this dynamic because you went through it last year.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of stuff ready because I think it's going to continue through the spring and summer. I just can't see how they're going to legitimately say, okay, we think it's safe for you coaches, all of us older. To be traveling around all over the country.
Right.
Or what are you going to do if a kid comes and visits your campus that's safe right now? You know what I mean? You're going to take them to a restaurant?
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's going to be shut down for a good while when it comes to that. And so you just have to adjust. You have to study the film. You have to do more FaceTimes and more Zoom calls and different things like that. I'm of the theory that you're still going to get the same players.
Okay.
As long as everybody's on equal ground.
Mm-hmm. Are they?
Yeah, meaning this team can't go out and recruit.
Okay.
So that if
right.
we're all locked down, we can't go see kids play. They can't visit campus, different things like that. For the most part, you're going to get the same players.
The summer is so important, though, in recruiting. To go and watch the AAU games, and you get 6 games for the price of 1.
Right.
I mean, how important is it to have that, and then to have that taken away?
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the guys, for the recruits, to be honest with you, because I think some guys are going to fall through the cracks.
The kids that, when you go to watch someone and someone else catches your eye, they don't get seen. Yeah.
And you just don't, because if there's 2 games going on, you can kind of be watching both. Well, now you got to watch one on the film and then watch the second one on the film. I'm just not sure there's enough days in the week and hours in the day to be able to do all that. So, and then, Jim, the elephant in the room, now you add the transfer stuff to it all those different things. It's going to be crazy.
Which you don't really know until it happens.
Oh, yeah, exactly right.
All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at who the Bulls have coming up, including the Tulane Green Wave Sunday here at the Yuengling Center. Brian Gregory Show continues. Welcome back to the final segment of the Brian Gregory Show. We appreciate you sticking with us throughout the course of this one, and the Bulls got beat by Houston on Wednesday night, 82-65, but, Coach, you turn right around and get another one on Sunday. What I like in this schedule, and the game did get moved back one day, get your feelings about that, but number 2 is there's just enough time that you can finally get some 5-on-5 practice in there, at least a little bit.
You get a couple more days of it, which I think is going to be critical, especially because you're playing a unique style, their zone and the matchup and all those different things. Giving us 2 days to get ready for that. But also, more importantly, Jim, as you said, 2 days of contact, 2 days of working on the not only the reps, but the timing of different things is going to be critical for us moving forward.
How much do you know about Tulane? I mean, you just played Houston last night. They're a much different-looking team than 2 or 3 years ago, for sure. New head coach, new system.
They've won 2 road games at Tulsa and at Temple. So they're legitimately a much better team. Dynamic offensively in terms of a lot of guys that can take you off the dribble and play some dribble drive stuff and so forth. And then the zone, they're going to give you different looks, and you got to move the ball. You got to move people. You got to cut and flash. You got to do a great job on the glass. And eventually, whenever you play a team that plays a lot of zone, you got to make some shots. You know, you got to make some shots. So the one thing that they do is they play from tip to final buzzer. They play hard. They understand that they're improved, but they're still in the growth phase. So I think he's got those guys playing really hard. He's a really good coach. I think those guys have bought into what they're doing.
Guard-dominated team. Their two biggest guys play the fewest minutes on the team, so you'll have a size advantage here.
Yeah, they do a good job, and one of the big keys for us is to be able to play big but still defend. You know what I mean? We got to take advantage of it on the offensive end, but our bigs are going to have to get out on the perimeter, get down in the stance, and guard the ball.
Tulane has been through some coaches through the years, just even since you've been here. How well do you know Ron Hunter? I mean, both being around the state of Georgia so much, I would think you know him a little bit.
Yeah, and I know him going back to when he was the head coach at Indiana Purdue in Indianapolis. He was a great player at Miami of Ohio. He's a Dayton guy, went to Dayton Chaminade. So, yeah, I've known him since my time as a head coach at Dayton.
I've never heard a bad word about the guy.
No, great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy, good coach. You know, really has excelled in the urban setting, in the kind of the, you know, downtown Indianapolis, then in downtown Atlanta,
right,
and now in New Orleans. So he's kind of got a knack for that, and he's done a great job. He was a heck of a player. Played with at Miami of Ohio with Ron Harper when they were really good. Yeah, when they were really good.
When you coach in an urban setting like that, you hear so much about building a fence around your area. There's so many great players in the New Orleans area and the surrounding area. And then you get kids that are from New Orleans and maybe go to LSU or maybe go to an SEC school and will easily come back.
And that's he built all three programs. A little more when he was at IUPUI. He did a little better. He got some more high school kids. But he took a lot of transfers. At Georgia State, the transfers were a big key. Now he had his son who was an NBA player.
Right.
And at Tulane, it's he mixes in some Louisiana kids with some transfers, and he's had some success doing it.
And he's had a daunting task taking over that program where they were just really, really down. And you've been through it as well. I mean, you took over a program here that was down, but the patience is the most important part.
Yeah, you know, and it's hard because my first year in the league, Tulane was pretty darn good. You know, you go through some of those players that they had. Obviously, really hurt that a kid left early and went to the pros. But the ability to sustain and then take the next step. Everybody's kind of been there where it was one step away from taking the next step, but they haven't been able to get to that level right before. And so, you know, I think Ron's getting there. I really do.
These two schools have been playing each other for a long, long time. Bulls have beaten them 3 straight, but Tulane has won 4 of the last 5 in this building, which is strange. You know, sometimes there are odd things that happen like that, I guess. Hopefully it ends on Sunday.
Hopefully it ends on Sunday.
After that, you've got they actually have a game on Friday, so they'll play against UCF. Then they come in, so they're going to have 3 straight road games. They're going to be pretty worn out, I would think.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so. Speaking of UCF, you have them on February the 17th. That'll be a rematch of the War on I-4, the game that you won here. And you talked about that team, how good they are, and they're pretty high in the net because of who they've played.
Yeah, and the wins that they've had. Yeah, so I mean, you go into that game and your rival on the road, you're going to have to play really well defensively. We're going to have to do a really good job, better job on Perry in round 2 than we did in round 1. Got to do a great job on the glass. And then, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, offensively, the pace that we played at in that game was really good, and we're going to need to do that as well.
SMU is also scheduled for February the 20th. That was supposed to be here. Now it's going to be there in Dallas. It'll be the first time you've seen them. And then one last question. You had 7 games essentially canceled. How many of those, you get the Houston game back, but how many of those do you think you'll get back at all, if any?
Yeah, maybe another 1 or 2, possibly. but I could see us playing 14 league games. Because what's happened is
You're going to run out of time on the back end.
we run out of time, and what has to happen is when we're available to play a 3-game in a week schedule, a Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, one of those teams that we missed has to be available on that day as well.
Right.
And what is going to happen, though, is you see now Memphis and ECU are back on pause. So one of these teams we play in these last 7 games may go on pause. So now we're going to have to readjust. So it's going to be interesting to see what this
Never-ending cycle.
Never ending.
Yeah.
Never ending.
Well, Coach, good luck coming up on Sunday against Tulane and the UCF and SMU games as well, and we'll sit back down and talk about those coming up ahead.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, that's Bulls head coach Brian Gregory. I'm Jim Lighthall. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in about a month.